Welcome back, 6:32. And as I said before, it is Thursday, and so every Thursday without fail, we are joined by ASP Acting Rajesh Lal to talk to us from the TTPS to give us his perspective on everything that's going on with the police service. And a lot to talk about, as you know, as our front page, all three front pages, talking about this big story today. The cops killed 6 bandits. And the first question I asked you, we sure they're bandits? We know that. We're satisfied.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will continue to do its investigation. It was, in fact, an intelligence-led exercise conducted by officers of the Central Division CID Department and had cause to respond to several reports of robberies and what people term the home invasions,
yes,
which are really robbery with violence and offences occurring at the dwelling homes of individuals. The members of the TTPS had cause to visit a certain location. Upon investigations, we had cause to intention of arresting individuals and bringing them before the powers that be. However, there were shots fired and police officers had to use our use of force policy, which moves, and there's a continuous assessment as it relates to our use of force policy.
Of course.
First of all, we must always do an assessment, and considering the assessment, we determine what are the best actions to be taken, and then we act.
What more can you tell us about these people? It's been about maybe a little over 12 hours since this happened, more than 12 hours. What can you tell us about these victims? What was it, a ring? Was it a long stand? Did they have a rap sheet? Were they known to police? Anything you can add to that?
Well, at this time we are still in the process of completing the investigations, and any further information as it relates to any past antecedents of these individuals, I'm quite sure there will be a further media release.
And I know one of the issues that we always hear in this case is, were they wearing body cams? So we could acknowledge that everything was above board. Anything you could add on
well,
that?
At this time, I'm not aware whether any body cameras were used in the course of action. However, again, once the further inquiries continue, the TTPS will release full and frank disclosure. And what I must say, even as it relates to any police shooting, there is a First Division officer who is assigned to do investigations, and those investigations are compiled, submitted to the office of the DPP, and the DPP will then give instructions as to what's the next procedure, whether there be charges to be initiated or for the matter to be reverted to the coroner's inquest court, for inquest to be held to determine what was the likely cause of death and whether any person is culpable.
And when something like this happens, do the officers just pick up like normal and go back to work, or do they have to take some time off and regroup? Because I can't imagine, even though you're trained for it, taking a life can't be easy.
Definitely,
mentally.
It's not something easy. And we do have systems in place. And we have trained social workers who would interact with these officers to determine that there's no post-traumatic stress, and to ensure that the officers at the end of the day have complied fully with the law, but are also fit to resume duties.
All right. One of the other, anything you want to add? I know you said you had there was a statement or something.
Well, I actually ad-libbed what the media release indicated, and it's really about the investigations of the officers, and the officers had to respond. Mm-hmm. And when they intended to arrest the individuals for questioning, they had cause to
return fire
in accordance with our use of force policy, in accordance with the Firearms Act as well. And unfortunately, the loss of lives, something that has occurred, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will continue its investigations.
And it's not even the first one this week. There was one this weekend, another police shooting this weekend, but it seems as though it's one of those cases where a fed up public is actually they're okay. They say, listen, the police have to do their job. So you may be getting some support from the public in this regard. So
well, what I can say, I would like to continue to thank the public for sharing all the information that would have led us to proceeding to that location. And also, there has been a number of finds of ammunition, firearms, continuous exercise by the members of the TTPS to rid the streets of illegal firearms. And we continue to do that day in, day out.
Now, before the front page interrupted our original conversation, we did want to talk about DUI, driving under the influence. Breathalyzers, they're still around, right? They're still being used on a day-to-day by TTPS. They're still being
used, and the latest activities by the TTPS is recertification of the officers who are breath technicians to ensure, because there is an expiry date as it relates to their certification,
right.
And there is actually a retraining program to ensure that officers comply with the standing orders, with the legislations, with our departmental orders, to ensure that justice is not only done, but seen to be done as well.
I do remember that when the breathalyzers first came about, there was a certain number of officers who had been trained at the time. How many officers would you say are now certified to use this equipment?
I don't have the actual number on me at this time. However, there's always that constant recruiting of breath techs, and not only breath techs. As you know, we have the introduction of the speed guns as well.
Yes, I have questions on that too.
Yes, and we in fact have majority of the officers who are breath techs, majority of them also undergo the training as speed technicians. And what we have is majority of matters now, when persons are issued fixed penalty notice for speeding, they have the ability to contest that fixed penalty notice. And we have persons coming before the courts, and the technicians will give their evidence as well.
These people who are trained, is it mandatory? As in, if I'm working on the traffic beat, I have to be trained, or do I volunteer? Am I chosen by my supervisors? How do you become one of those trained technicians?
It's a mixture of all you just mentioned.
Okay.
So senior officers who have officers dedicated to traffic controls, police officers who are attached to the Traffic and Highway Patrol branch, and we have officers who also assigned to particular sections within the TTPS that deals with traffic violations, traffic offenses.
Are you seeing an increase in drunk driving? Now, one of the things that we saw was when the breathalyzer came in and the speed guns came in, you really did see traffic deaths go down a lot. And then now you see a little uptick. Is it? Do you think there's a lack of enforcement that's happening here? People getting a little bit more comfortable to break the law because they say, well, I'm not seeing any speed traps, or I'm not seeing a little breathalyzer trap here and there. Do you think that's related at all?
I'm not sure, because I can't read minds of individuals to determine what they believe. But what the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will continue to do is go back to the drawing board, determine if there's certain gaps that we are missing, and target those areas. So what we try to also do is determine the areas that are considered high-risk areas, that we see a lot of fatal RTAs, serious RTAs, and try to concentrate in reducing the number of accidents in those areas. And you will see from time to time, but we continue to have roadblocks from one place to the other. We have persons indicating where the roadblocks are. So we are trying other ways to, but that's a good thing as well, because it also lets people know that the police are working. We will continue to change some of the patterns that we have. I can't disclose what changes are those, but we will continue to go back to the drawing board, because we want to continue enforcement.
I do remember a former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith always saying you should never have a roadblock for more than, let's say, 15, 20 minutes at a time, because by the time you do that roadblock, somebody texts in and, so you do it here for 15 minutes, you move and you keep the public on their toes, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's one of the strategies have been done throughout the TTPS. But again, we also have to look at some individuals, some areas are high traffic areas. Mm-hmm. So especially after certain events, we may want to have officers strategically placed to ensure that persons do not endanger their lives and the lives of their passengers or even the lives of the members of the public.
And you kind of realize that too, that after these big fetes, somebody's going to be outside doing breathalyzer. So you hope that creates a deterrent for people from drinking and then trying to get behind the wheel.
Excellent. And what we're also seeing, persons are using more drivers. They're high-end maxis, they're high-end charters.
Right.
So they could go as a group, which increases the level of safety
as well
amongst numbers. There's also that designated driver, so those who want to indulge can indulge, and they have the ability to reach home safely and not be affected by criminal elements.
You don't have to worry about parking.
And don't have to worry about parking.
In terms of numbers, do you have any numbers in terms of tickets being issued for speeding or DUIs? Are they up, are they down in comparison to, let's say, last year?
Well, I don't have the numbers at this time, but there are constant exercises, there are constant patrols, and there are constant use of the devices for enforcement of the law. We will also see, or some officers may also issue warnings, because the FPN system has that as well. So if a person has a legitimate reason, the officers in some instances may not issue a fixed penalty, mm-hmm. but issue a warning. So if you come back again with a similar excuse, you may not be given what we call in Trinidad the bly.
That warning is documented somewhere?
It is actually documented or saved on the system.
Okay, so if I go up to the officer and I say, well, boy, I was taking cough medicine, somebody could actually look and say, they said that last week when we
that's different.
No, maybe not that far, but you know what I mean? But you've been warned before.
Or my bulb went off last week.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the bulb blown, my left side bulb blown. You may have a shorting problem. Or
there is a pattern, and you could see on the system that there's a pattern.
Once you pull up the driver's permit, you could see all the fixed penalty notices a person may be issued, and those have been contested. We also have the ability to determine whether a person has been disqualified as well.
Nice. And that's right there on the spot.
Right on the spot. That's an excellent thing that we have in relation to the driver's permit database. And we could even determine if persons have fraudulent driver's permit as well.
Right. Well, that's good.
So more tools and more technology in the hands of the TTPS. And we continue to work with our stakeholders to ensure that, there's safety on the roadways.
And of course, you're always going to battle those people who say these roadblocks just to make money. But what do you say to them?
Well, police officers have to do different strategies. In some instances, we would have to breach the constitutional rights of some individuals by entering their homes and searching their homes. In some instances, we have to stop cars on the roadway because we know that vehicles are number one. Well, firearms must move from one place to the other. Mm. And majority of the time, they are conveyed by vehicles. And we also do stop and search, a lot of stop and search as well. So we have to do what we have to do at the TTPS. We continue to thank members of the public for cooperating. And we know at some time it is inconvenient, but it is, as I indicated sometime before, even the criminals are using the peak hours now because they realize that the police officers operating more off-peak.
At night, right.
So better we try to sneak in with the members of the public.
Okay. Just last, before we wrap, the Tint laws coming into effect, how has that been working with the TTPS? Has that started being rolled out in the traffic stops as well, testing the people's tints and and all of that?
Well, it has been ruled out, but it has not been heavily enforced as yet. We are still asking members of the public, and I know there has been reminder from the Ministry of Works and Transport for persons to get their house in order, get their tints in order. So we are having, that communication, members of the public, those who are overdoing it. And if you believe that you have the right or the need for an exemption, there are exemptions that one could get. Apply.
Yeah, like
and if you apply and you show good cause, the Transport Commission may or may not grant it. It's up to the Transport Commissioner.
Take your chance. All right.
And if you take the chance, we have no choice, because in one of the incidents where certain illegal items were found, the vehicle was heavily tinted, and it could cause some kind of reasonable cause to believe you're suspect of hiding something.
Yeah.
Or some criminal activity may be going on that we cannot see inside the vehicle.
ASP Rajesh Lal, thank you very much, of course, for your time. We always appreciate it. The TTPS, they may get some blows, but they get some praise. I think today is one of those days where they're getting some praise. We're going to take a quick break and be right back.